Operation Sindoor marked an inflection point in the ongoing rivalry between India and Pakistan, blending kinetic precision warfare with the turbulence of digital propaganda. As Indian precision strikes devastated terrorist infrastructure deep inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the world observed two parallel realities: the verifiable facts established by satellite evidence, independent journalist reports, and Indian military briefings, and a manufactured alternate universe propagated through official Pakistani channels, social media botnets, and crafted narratives by ministers and military spokespeople. Across the border, Pakistan's military and civilian leadership shifted rapidly into crisis communications, striving not only to save face but to seize the information initiative. On the very first night of Indian strikes, the Inter-Services Public Relations (ISPR), Pakistan's military media wing, issued its first statement. Indian aggression foiled, no significant damage to any Pakistani military facility, and the enemy suffered heavy losses. The narrative continued to evolve, but several repeated themes emerged in the days that followed, each demonstrably false under even basic scrutiny. The shoot-down and heavy losses myth. From the moment the first missiles landed, Pakistan's Army and Air Force initiated a blitz of briefings, both to domestic audiences and the wider world. ISPR's claim: multiple Indian fighter jets shot down, including several Rafales, by Pakistan's air defenses. Wreckage retrieved in our territory. Indian casualties mounting. Fact check: no evidence has ever emerged to support these dramatic shoot-down claims. Not a single credible photograph or video from independent journalists, international observers, or even neutral civilians surfaced showing the supposed downed aircraft or their pilots. The images pushed out by ISPR and official Twitter handles were swiftly debunked by Indian and foreign fact-checkers. These visuals were either AI-generated fakes, old photos from unrelated crashes, or video game screenshots dressed up as real-world footage. The Press Information Bureau, PIB, of India responded directly. The images circulating are from historic aviation incidents, with serial numbers and markings altered digitally. Tales of Indian surrender and white flags. Pakistan's ISPR and some government ministers then pivoted to a different assertion. In at least two briefings, and in televised statements by politicians such as the Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Aditullah Tarar, claims surfaced that Indian Army raised the white flag and surrendered at the Kora complex along the line of control, with hundreds of Indian troops seeking the mercy of Pakistani forces. Fact check: this narrative was resoundingly debunked by independent analysts and government fact-check units. The video purporting to show Indian troops with white flags was revealed to be an old clip from September 2019, showing Pakistani soldiers using white flags to retrieve their own casualties after a failed infiltration attempt. Yet, Pakistani official sources shared it as breaking news of Indian defeat. The Indian government responded: this clip does not depict Indian troops, and no Indian military personnel surrendered at any location during Operation Sindoor. On the contrary, all objectives were achieved without loss of territory or personnel. Pakistan's Air Force victory and Srinagar airbase attack claims. A particularly audacious claim came when Pakistani Air Force officers, with official sanction, alleged the successful targeting of Srinagar airbase and the destruction of several Indian aircraft and military structures. Fact check: not only did Indian authorities and on-ground media show no evidence of damage at Srinagar or any Indian airbase, but a careful examination of visual proof revealed the videos were from sectarian clashes in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan, in 2024, completely unrelated to Sindoor or even India. Indian social media fact-checkers, along with the PIB, flagged these as deliberate attempts to mislead both domestic and international audiences. Phantom prisoners and captured Indian soldiers. During this period, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif made his own foray into the theater of the absurd, claiming in front of Pakistani and foreign media that Indian soldiers have been taken captive following fierce fighting. These claims were trumpeted widely in the local press and on military-affiliated social media pages. Fact check: no international monitoring agency, third-party news outlet, or even Pakistani opposition media found any evidence of Indian POWs. In fact, when pressed for proof, Defense Minister Asif was forced to retract his statement. The Indian military, on record and in the presence of independent observers, reported 0 personnel missing in action and no cases of troops captured or detained. Civilian casualties and claims of mosque bombing. As international questions mounted over the legality and targets of Indian strikes, Pakistani spokespeople sought to focus the world's attention on alleged massive civilian casualties. Numerous official statements, echoing briefings from the Prime Minister and Foreign Ministry, alleged the intentional targeting of mosques, schools, and residential neighborhoods, killing dozens of women and children. Fact check. Indian authorities and independent satellite imagery provided solid evidence that all Indian raids targeted pre-selected terrorist facilities, camps, hideouts, logistics depots, and known jihadist command centers, leaving adjacent civilian zones intact. Furthermore, several images posted by Pakistani officials meant to show civilian destruction were proven to be stock images or, in many cases, photoshopped versions of earlier unrelated disasters. Studies by the Fact Check Unit and multiple independent OSINT collectives, like Bellingcat, demonstrated that locations described by the Pakistani government as struck mosques were untouched or, in instances where minor structural damage was observed, mapped onto confirmed dual-use or terrorist locations housing leaders of Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. The aftermath of Operation Sindoor saw Pakistan's Navy step into the spotlight, issuing a series of surprisingly bold statements about its supposed tactical success. Rear Admiral Mohammad Amjad Khan Niazi, Chief of Naval Staff, declared in multiple briefings, "The Pakistan Navy has repelled every Indian attempt to break Pakistani sea control. Our strategic assets are untouched, and Indian ships have retreated." Newspapers such as The Nation and Dawn published headlines like, "Pakistan Navy's rapid response diffuses Indian threat," and "No losses suffered by Pakistani fleet." Fact check. Satellite imagery, OSINT, open source intelligence, and defense journalists monitoring maritime traffic revealed an entirely different story. Geospatial analysis tracked Pakistan's principal warships and submarines fleeing coastal naval bases in Karachi, Ormara, and Gwadar, many rerouted toward Iranian waters or commercial ports, far from the zone of engagement. Not only did these warships avoid the supposed front lines, but intercepted maritime radio transmissions indicated orders to remain docked or at anchor, away from high-risk zones. Indian and allied satellites confirmed no active Pakistani naval deployments for several days following the strikes, and subsequent investigations showed broadcast combat footage from Pakistani Navy PR teams was either staged, using old training materials, or outright fabricated using foreign stock content. In fact, Pakistan's frantic retreat echoed historical precedent. During the 1971 conflict, the Pakistan Navy lost the PNS Ghazi submarine to mines and had warships destroyed in Karachi by Indian missile boats. Operation Sindoor's pressure forced a similar panic response, disproving official claims of bravado and resilience. India Today, citing high-level sources, reported, "Pakistan's fleet movement post-Sindoor shows not aggressive defense, but an unprecedented withdrawal and sheltering." Attempts by Pakistan Navy spokespeople to post proof on social media included generic photos of warships underway, but these were quickly sourced to years-old deployments and not the Sindoor operational timeline. Invented damage to Indian military assets. The DGISPR's team went further, releasing alleged satellite photos and intercepted radio communications, confirming successful Pakistani attacks on Indian air defense systems, radar stations, and logistical hubs. These were distributed via WhatsApp, Telegram, and Twitter, echoing through the Pakistani digital ecosystem and amplified by government-aligned media. Fact check. Indian Ministry of Defense, with independent verification by private aerospace analysts, showed all air defense facilities remained fully functional. The images circulated by Pakistan were found to be doctored composites, some derived from Google Earth and commercial mapping tools with artificial overlays simulating blast damage. False radio transmissions, presented as evidence of Indian distress, were traced by OSINT volunteers to a Russian-language video game streamer broadcasting gameplay unrelated to Southeast Asia. Not one credible defense correspondent, foreign attaché, or neutral observer could independently verify Pakistani claims. Pakistani Air Force officials, led by Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmed Babar Sidhu, issued multiple statements claiming complete aerial superiority, no aircraft lost to Indian missiles, total air defense coverage achieved, and enemy jets forced into retreat. On national television and through ISBR's English-language Twitter, the message was clear. Operation Sindoor was repulsed with near-mythical Pakistani skill. Fact check. International observers and Indian military briefings told a starkly contrasting story. Post-strike footage captured by satellites and independent reporters documented the destruction of multiple PAF F-16s and JF-17s, including the visible cratering of runways and hangars at Sargodha and Mayanwali, images published by the Indian Express and India Today. Pakistani authorities responded to these leaks by shutting down mobile coverage around affected bases and censoring journalists. Furthermore, procurement records and spare parts requests from PAF, leaked to global aviation reporters, showed frantic purchases of replacement components for damaged aircraft. Indian Air Force Chief Air Marshal V.R. Chouhari summarized at a press conference, "All our aircraft returned safely. Their claims have no basis." Verified battle damage assessments prove significant PAF losses. Attempts to internationalize and humanize the conflict. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Foreign Minister Bal held press conferences urging the United Nations to condemn India's supposed violation of civilian and humanitarian norms. Sharif declared, "Indian strikes have killed dozens of innocent civilians, attacked schools, hospitals, mosques, and endangered international peace." Fact check. As with previous claims, no reputable international monitoring organization, NGO, or foreign embassy in Pakistan corroborated these statements. Multiple UN field officers in Islamabad released anonymous reports anonymously debunking Pakistan's numbers, showing that casualty figures had been grossly inflated, and that sites named were either untouched or known to support designated terror organizations targeted in Indian raids. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs, supported by independent statements from Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, presented photographic and satellite evidence showing high accuracy of Indian strikes and lack of significant civilian humanitarian damage. Ministerial leaks and parliamentary disinformation. Throughout the campaign, Pakistani cabinet ministers frequently promoted unverified rumors. Defense Minister, Interior Minister, and even opposition members claimed to have leaked Indian war plans, captured intelligence, or classified correspondence proving Indian failure. Some went so far as to suggest India was seeking urgent UN-mediated ceasefires due to unsustainable losses. Fact check. No actual classified communications or operational details surfaced outside government-controlled Pakistani media. Indian agencies and international diplomatic sources flatly denied any approach for mediation. Instead, releases from the Press Information Bureau, MEA, and Indian Army headquarters confirmed sustained Indian operational tempo, clear achievement of objectives, and the absence of any request for truce or foreign intervention. The supposed leaked plans turned out to be excerpts from old Indian field manuals, publicly available online since 2015. Social media fakery, the weaponization of information. While traditional media in Pakistan echoed the official narrative, the true engine of the disinformation campaign was digital. Within hours of the initial Indian strikes, a torrent of social media activity, remarkably similar in phrasing, imagery, and timing, flooded platforms like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp throughout South Asia and far beyond. Coordinated bot networks and hashtag amplification. Investigative groups including the Digital Forensic Research Lab, DFR Lab, and several Indian cybersecurity firms identified clear signs of organized inauthentic behavior. Hundreds of bot accounts, many set up mere days before Operation Sindoor, began posting at high frequency. Hashtags like Sindoor Strike Fail, Raffle Down, Indian Retreat, and Pak Victory dominated local social trends. Forensic analysis revealed that many of these accounts originated from the same clusters of IPs traced back to known data centers in Rawalpindi and Lahore, with a second wave linking to Iranian and East European troll farm contractors, the same entities previously tied to state-run disinformation efforts during other regional crises. Fake influencers and astroturfing techniques. Another component involved alleged defense analysts, independent journalists, and witnesses at the border who claimed to have witnessed Indian fighters being shot down or Indian troops surrendering en masse. In reality, most of these personas were automated bots, accounts with no prior history suddenly activated, or known pro-Pakistan influencers repurposing old generic war footage with misleading captions. A well-known case involved accounts presenting fake cockpit footage, pulled from military flight simulators or YouTube airshow archives, and passed off as real IAF losses due to PAF strikes. Such posts often went viral before being debunked by aviation experts who recognized the artwork of commercial software or previously published event videos. Taking information warfare to another level, the Pakistani digital campaign deployed AI-generated media, debris field photos purported to show shot-down Rafale jets, deepfake news segments with synthetic pilots confessing to defeat, and CGI renderings of airbase strikes. Detailed OSINT backtracing, aided by watermark and metadata analysis, conclusively proved these images and videos originated from AI art tools and video editing suites, not real war zones. The photos contained artifacts characteristic of generative models, and often mismatched the known livery or serial ranges of Indian aircraft. Debunking efforts, counteroffensive in the information space. Indian authorities, learning from past provocations, were quick and methodical in their response. The Press Information Bureau's fact-check unit set up a 24/7 social monitoring desk, instantly flagging suspicious trends and issuing visual guides debunking the most viral misinformation. Indian public broadcasters like DD News and Doordarshan aired short explainers showing the falsification process, even inviting digital forensics experts to demonstrate image manipulation techniques live. Major news outlets published Mythbuster articles, providing side-by-side comparisons of original images and their doctored or AI-altered counterparts. International fact-checkers like AFP, Reuters, and Bellingcat joined the effort with rapid, false, misleading, or AI-generated tags on viral posts. The social media platforms themselves, aware of increased scrutiny over foreign interference, cooperated to suspend the worst offenders and deprioritize algorithmic amplification of newly created disinformation vectors. The echo chamber, amplifying lies abroad. Pakistan's information warfare extended not only to its domestic audience, but also sought to influence global opinion, especially in states where India's narrative could affect arms deals, diplomatic partnerships, or strategic alignments. English-language posts and video reports were flood-posted to journalists, WhatsApp groups in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Editorials paid for by Pakistani agencies appeared in lower-profile foreign news outlets, casting doubt on the effectiveness of the Rafale and lauding the invincibility of Pakistani air defenses. International response, however, skewed heavily in favor of facts. French officials, backed by Indian diplomats, conducted their own information diplomacy, releasing after-action photographic evidence, hosting briefings for defense attachés, and welcoming UN observers to verify the operational status of Indian fighters. Western allies adopted a posture of trust, but verify, publicly acknowledging that there was no credible evidence to support Pakistan's claims. The destroyed Rafale debris incident. The supposed images of a downed Rafale circulated widely, with ISPR and government-linked journalists claiming it as proof of tactical victory. Fact-checkers identified the debris as belonging to an Algerian Su-30 MKA crash from 2022, with serial numbers blurred and Indian markings digitally added, underscoring the lengths to which Pakistani handlers were willing to go. Fake surrender footage. Trending video of Indian soldiers surrendering turned out to be scenes from an old border management documentary, with context stripped and Pakistani voiceover layered atop. The same footage was geolocated by BBC Analysis to an area inside Pakistani territory, recorded years prior, following a local ceasefire. Claims about mass civilian deaths. Viral images spread by Pakistani Ministry of Information, showing supposed children victims of Indian air raids, were shown to be taken from unrelated war zones in Syria and Yemen. Reverse image search functions and independent rights monitors immediately clarified the context, leading even some Pakistani Twitter users to request corrections in their own government's posts. The human dimension, on-the-ground reporting. Amid all this, Gittal Theater, brave Pakistani and international journalists working inside conflict areas attempted to report facts. Several publicly disputed ISPR's version of events, noting there was no tangible evidence of mass Indian casualties, destroyed Indian equipment, or widespread civilian fatalities. Pakistani opposition leaders, including members of the Pakistan People's Party, PPP, challenged government narratives in parliament, warning that fake news risked greater diplomatic isolation and loss of credibility with partners in the OIC and the West. Failed internationalization and diplomatic theater. Pakistan, confronted by swift reversals on the battlefield and in the digital realm, doubled down on efforts to internationalize the conflict. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif led urgent outreach to the United Nations, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, and sympathetic partners in Turkey, Malaysia, and China. In rapid-fire press conferences, Sharif described Operation Sindoor as an escalation that endangers global peace, asserting Indian violations of the Geneva Conventions and mass suffering among civilians. Fact check: despite high-level appeals, Pakistan struggled to marshal credible evidence or third-party verification. United Nations officials, including UNHCR and UNOCHA on the ground in Islamabad and Rawalpindi, found no evidence of mass civilian targeting or war crimes. When pressed for specific locations or names, Pakistani ministries offered vague descriptions or repeated unsubstantiated numbers, many of which were later disproven by independent satellite imagery and rights monitors. The OIC issued a bland statement urging restraint on both sides, but did not corroborate Pakistan's dramatic casualty claims. International media contacted Pakistani officials for proof: photos, field reports, independent access. The answer was always the same. Security reasons prevented site visits, and all documentation provided was either generic, recycled, or quickly flagged as digitally manipulated. Several exclusive reports provided to friendly channels such as Turkey's Anadolu Agency included photographs later shown to have originated from unrelated conflicts or stock imagery databases. The myth of naval dominance and its exposure. The Pakistan Navy, as described earlier, played a prominent role in the information campaign by declaring resounding victory at sea, repelling Indian naval advances, maintaining absolute control over the Arabian Sea, and inflicting serious losses on enemy ships. Fact check: again, OSINT practitioners, maritime monitoring services, and independent journalists exposed the truth. Fleet movements of Pakistan Navy assets were confirmed to be withdrawal maneuvers, with warships and submarines seeking shelter in non-strategic anchorages or even docking at third-party ports away from the zone of operations. Indian Navy, meanwhile, released radar snapshots and real-time tracking demonstrating free movement and mission accomplishment within declared operation areas, with zero losses or combat damage. Commercial satellite passes made public to media outlets like Reuters and NDTV conclusively showed Pakistani vessels in retreat, not combat. Attempts to spin stage training exercises as real-time combat success failed when timestamps and vessel identities did not match known operational data. Strategic errors and the costs of disinformation. As the third week of Operation Sindoor closed, cracks in the Pakistani narrative became too large to ignore. Independent Pakistani defense analysts began to warn that sustained reliance on manufactured success stories had two consequences. First, exaggerated claims were quickly debunked abroad, hurting Pakistan's credibility as a responsible actor on the world stage. Second, this pattern of creating victories from thin air led to dangerous misperceptions domestically. False confidence risked strategic miscalculation, with ordinary citizens and even mid-level commanders believing their own side was winning. Parliamentary opposition members aired these concerns, pointing out the risk of diplomatic isolation, failed military reform, and even undermined recruitment efforts in the armed forces. Internationally, foreign attachés, including those from the UAE, UK, Russia, and France, requested clarification and transparency. Finding few answers, many simply turned away. Technical sabotage and cyberjamming attempts. In a final gambit, Pakistani agencies moved to more overt digital disruption. Numerous attempts were made to jam Indian communications, blind battlefield sensors, and launch denial-of-service attacks against Indian government and military web infrastructure. Indian cyber defense units, working with local private sector specialists, responded by hardening firewalls, deploying honeypots to misdirect attackers, and rolling out encrypted internal comms. None of Pakistan's major jamming or digital strike efforts succeeded in causing meaningful loss of command and control or damaging Indian networks. Only minor, temporary disturbances were reported in isolated areas, quickly rectified. The Indian Ministry of Defense ultimately reported in joint press briefings that cyber and technical warfare faced during Operation Sindoor had been anticipated through comprehensive training, simulations, and public-private partnerships beforehand. Lessons learned: the future of digital battlespace. The exhaustive fact-checking and real-time exposure of Pakistani lies during Operation Sindoor provided several key lessons for India and the broader international community. Disinformation, if left unchecked, can sow chaos and undermine morale, but robust digital literacy, rapid response, and transparent debunking are highly effective counters. International validation, both through satellite imagery and third-party observers, is critical to sustaining the truth and refuting manufactured claims. Successful military operations demand a parallel strategy for information defense, with coordination among ministries, cyber units, and global allies. Reliance on digital fakery for short-term propaganda can backfire, eroding trust at home and abroad, weakening national credibility, and complicating future diplomatic engagement. Operation Sindoor's legacy, then, is as much about truth and resilience as it is about kinetic victory. Through persistent, evidence-backed transparency and rapid debunking, India not only achieved its strategic goals but safeguarded its reputation on the global stage, demonstrating that in the modern battle space, the war of words and images can be as decisive as the clash of arms. Pakistan's state media, manufacturing consent and spinning defeat. No campaign of disinformation is complete without a compliant or coerced domestic press. During Operation Sindoor, Pakistan's state-run channels, PTV News, Radio Pakistan, and app, alongside military-affiliated outlets like ISPR's digital media unit, coordinated daily cycles of triumphal headlines, sanitizing reality and amplifying military and political talking points. Government censors instructed newsroom editors to prioritize content referencing decisive victories, enemy humiliation, and heroic resistance, while reducing coverage of civilian damage or any footage that might undermine morale. Leaks from inside PTV revealed editorial guidance, memos discouraging investigative reporting and insisting that only material approved by ISPR or federal ministries be broadcast. Popular anchors and defense commentators recycled government press releases and made appearances on international media, repeating the talking points. No PAF or Army losses, Indian aircraft destroyed, Pakistan's objectives achieved. Viewers in Pakistan were exposed to a closed-loop information environment where dissent or questioning of official statements could result in temporary suspensions, harassment, or worse. International fallout and loss of credibility. As the days wore on, cracks in Pakistan's narrative became increasingly visible to even casual observers overseas. Several foreign diplomats based in Islamabad, including those from the EU, UAE, and Japan, voiced concern to their home capitals over the lack of verifiable evidence for any of the big claims made by Pakistani authorities. A communiqué leaked from the UAE embassy noted, "While official statements are confident, there is a marked absence of independent corroboration, raising red flags about the true state of conflict." Major international media outlets began to run parallel coverage, one side reporting Pakistani government claims almost verbatim, and another, more critical side highlighting the lack of on-the-ground verification and the mounting evidence of information manipulation. Publications such as The Guardian, The New York Times, and Le Monde carried op-eds from Western and Indian analysts dissecting the fakes, while even Al Jazeera and Turkish Anadolu Agency, typically sympathetic to Islamabad, issued corrections for reposting Pakistani military footage later proven to be doctored or staged. Impact on domestic Pakistani discourse and civil society. For younger, connected Pakistanis, those on social media, using VPNs, following global news aggregators, the wall of official propaganda often inspired skepticism or outright parody. Pakistani Twitter and Instagram witnessed a parallel trend. Memes mocking government claims, user-submitted geolocation debunkings of ISPR videos, and grassroots influencers urging for transparency. Some of these posts became viral flashpoints, showing that even within Pakistan, full population control over the narrative was impossible. Independent journalists and opposition parties, particularly figures from PPP, PTI, and the handful of liberal media outlets, risked severe pushback for calling out inconsistencies. Some were threatened with legal action under Pakistan's cybercrime and sedition laws, while others faced coordinated social media harassment by anonymous, patriotic accounts. Pakistan's information apparatus targeted Indian audiences with custom-tailored narratives. WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook groups, especially in border regions in Kashmir, were seeded with voice notes, shallow fake videos, and manipulated photos purportedly showing Indian casualties, civilian protests, or anti-government riots in Indian cities. Indian security agencies tracked the origins of these messages to content farms run by Pakistani agencies, confirming with technical logs and intercepted data the cross-border nature of the operation. International outlets were not spared. Lobbying efforts with foreign journalists, anonymous dossiers sent to South Asian studies chairs at major universities, and shadow campaigns to seed op-eds critical of Indian air power all recycled the same propaganda. However, most were caught in review or after publication by vigilant academic, journalistic, and government fact-check teams. This not only blunted Pakistan's outreach, but in some cases, such as retracted Al Jazeera segments, resulted in formal apologies, strengthening India's credibility. Lessons from past disinformation and new doctrine for the future. Operation Sindoor's information environment built on and surpassed the sophistication seen during the Balakot episode years earlier. Then, Pakistan had briefly claimed down Indian aircraft and even mishandled an Indian pilot's capture for maximum public spectacle. The world's takeaways from Sindoor were several. Real-time, AI-assisted fact-check tools can now rapidly identify, analyze, and expose fake media within hours rather than days. Mass bot campaigns are susceptible to fingerprinting and deplatforming, provided there is proactive government and private sector alignment. Open access to satellite imagery and crowdsourced geolocation forums, such as Bellingcat, GeoConfirmed, and Indian OSINT groups, means fabricating physical events is riskier than ever. Civil society in even tightly controlled states like Pakistan exerts unexpected, organic resistance to narrative control, especially among the digital native generation. Pakistan's reputational costs and the way forward. As Operation Sindoor faded from the headlines, Pakistan was left facing significant reputational damage. Pakistani military and political leadership eventually held internal reviews, unpublished but leaked to Western press, acknowledging the limited lifespan of InfoOps-based victory and the dangers of blowback in a connected digital age. A handful of retired generals, in private think tank conferences, urged a return to truth-based strategic communication, warning that the next real crisis will offer no time for viral corrections. Digital networks and cyber teams behind Pakistan's information warfare. One of the most revealing aspects of Operation Sindoor's aftermath is the mapping of Pakistan's digital networks and state-directed cyber teams orchestrating the flood of disinformation. Investigations by Indian agencies, working alongside global cybersecurity experts, traced the epicenter of coordinated campaigns to specific offices within the Inter-Services Public Relations, ISPR, Pakistan's military media wing, as well as the cyber divisions of the Federal Investigation Agency, FIA. The technical arsenal. Pakistan's playbook included automated bot deployments. Thousands of fake accounts were created to boost hashtags, retweet official statements, and attack critics. These bots used algorithms to mimic human posting patterns, but forensic analysis revealed the repetition of phrases and coordinated posting times typical of inauthentic campaigns. Deepfake generation. Specialized graphic teams used open-source AI tools and proprietary editing suites to produce convincing images and video evidence fabricating key events, a practice first perfected in earlier regional crises. VPN masking and IP shifting. Many operations ran through VPNs that cycled between locations in Turkey, Eastern Europe, Iran, and even Southeast Asia to evade detection and obfuscate tracing. Influencer targeting and paid amplification. Pakistani agencies seeded content with so-called micro-influencers, local figures with some audience and CE in India and globally, to give the campaign a veneer of authenticity. Collaboration with non-state actors. Pakistan's digital push blended state actors with non-state cyber groups, freelance hacktivists, patriotic tech collectives, and even diaspora community support. Many Telegram and Discord channels serving as hubs for meme distribution and recruitment of digital foot soldiers were tracked back to university clubs in Lahore and Islamabad. Comparative case study: Balakot Kargil and Operation Sindoor. Operation Sindoor was not Pakistan's first use of digital propaganda and denial as a strategic tool. During the Balakot strikes in 2019, similar patterns emerged: exaggerated Pakistani successes, inflated claims of Indian losses, and exclusive footage of supposed battlefield victories. However, advances in open-source intelligence and global digital literacy meant Sindoor saw these old tactics confronted and exposed in near real time. Kargil in 1999 precipitated a different kind of manipulation. Then, Pakistani media and officials denied their own army's involvement, blamed Kashmiri freedom fighters, and denied Indian territorial gains up to the minute Pakistani troops were withdrawn. As the digital age matured, these methods pivoted from analog press management to full-spectrum information warfare across platforms. Sindoor's difference lay in speed and scalability: AI-powered fakes, botnets, and globalized distribution. The move from isolated press briefings to instant viral narratives multiplied both the reach and the risk of international reputation collapse. India's information resilience, countermeasures, and doctrine. Recognizing the potency of Pakistan's info ops, Indian ministries crafted doctrinal responses. Fact-checking and transparency. Rapid real-time publication of photographic and video evidence, social listening and rapid count response. Monitoring for viral fakes, responding with debunking posts and explainers. Partnering with tech companies for takedowns, reporting manipulation, and reinforcing authenticity algorithms. Education campaigns. Training soldiers, officials, and civilians in digital hygiene, source verification, and countering psychological manipulation.